keeps coming up with the Zoom live for me, and it says preparing to live stream the meeting.
Hang on. Now it's saying stream finished.
There, it's starting. It's doing an advertisement right now. Your live stream.
Is it running? Is it running?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We got Jim frozen.
I think that may be because you're seeing an old version.
There he goes. Jim is alive. We'll
And
start
let me just,
You're okay.
Let me just go ahead and start the show.
Here we go. I'm going to
Okay.
start
Sorry,
the
guys.
show.
Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you join us some more in the future and tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I'd like to go to Father Ron Walters for the prayer for the show. Father Walters.
Creator of the world, as modelers and makers, we recognize the intricacy and the beauty of our world. We thank you for the vision and the artistry you have given us. Continue to bless us with your creative spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father. We really do appreciate everything that you do for our show, particularly the prayer, but also all of the modeling that you have shown us that you do. If you have not been to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, please visit and subscribe. You'll get all of the login links for our future shows and a lot of other information that we have posted on our website. I hope that you're available on August the 30th for our show. We're going to have a major announcement of the scholarship winner for our first year's program. We're very, very proud of what we've been able to accomplish this first year, to be able to offer this scholarship to a high school graduate. And we think that you're going to really enjoy meeting the winner of our contest. And that'll be done on August the 30th. So please attend if you possibly can. Our next My Build is August the 23rd. The host is Chris Corse, and I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Jim. Go up to the screen here. All right, next My Build is August 23rd, and it is the August challenge, which is harvest. So whatever you've got that feeds into something harvest related, please go ahead and send me those photos, and we will include them in the My Build. Also, if it is your first time, please be sure to include a photo of yourself for your intro card. For the harvest, things such as farm equipment, grain elevators, hopper cars, mills, tractors, agricultural items, barns, chicken coops, livestock, cattle cars, food-related billboard cars, things of those nature are all things that we're very specifically interested in seeing in August. This has been fairly successful doing these different challenges, and we hope that it will continue. So please send us your stuff. We want to see something new and different, and doesn't matter if it's the best thing or the worst thing you've ever done. Maybe it's something you just learned from. Just go ahead and send me those photos to railrunner130@hotmail.com. Please get it to me closer to the 20th than the 23rd. And I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Chris, thank you so very much. I really appreciate all the help that you provide. I do want to make sure everybody understands that this segment of our show, the My Builds, is sponsored by Amy and Dan Doherty and their company that publishes both of the magazines, both the S-Scale Resource and O-Scale Resource that my articles are in. And everybody that shows their models on the My Build, not only do we get to see them on the Zoom show, but then I post them again in the next article that I have in one of those magazines. So you get a little visibility of your modeling, and that's what this is all about. It's you sharing your abilities and your techniques and how you build models with the rest of us. We all learn from that. We all learn and help each other, and that's what this is all about. So thanks for everything that you do, Chris. I really do appreciate it. Coming up tomorrow night is our Modeling Lifestyle special show that we do once every 2 weeks on Thursday evening. The only way that you can watch that show is on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. And tomorrow night, our featured guest is John Weigel. And John is an ON30 modeler. Used to be heavily involved with Bachman. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is where ON30 is right now and what's happening to it, and whether it's increasing or declining or wherever it is. And John is one of the premier people in that part of our hobby that can shed some light on that. So I hope that you're available and can visit with us. Next, I'd like to introduce Jim Spice. Jim is chairman and putting on the SM3 Symposium, which is May the 2nd through the 4th next year. So Jim, welcome, and love to hear about your upcoming show.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Well, thanks, Jim. Glad to be here with your group. Give you a little information on SM3 Symposium. Been in the works for a little while now, and we've managed to get it up and running.
Excuse me, Jim. Pat, could we spotlight Jim? Yeah, there we are. Excuse me, Jim. Okay.
Adjust this so everybody see it. There we go. Don't really need to look at me, just the information is more important. Anyway, we're going to have the next SM3 Symposium will be May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We are adding to that May 1st. For Wednesday night early visitors, we're going to offer operating sessions with we've got quite a few operating railroads in the Phoenix area, some really huge railroads, and we do a lot of operation out here. So we're going to highlight that for guys that want to do operating sessions. I want to thank the guys that are helping me out. I couldn't have done alone. Jeff Hamway is our registration chair. Paul Delaney is our contest chair. Chris Calloway, our clinics chair, and TC Carr has been doing all our media and website information. And appreciate all the help from these guys, or we could have never got it done. Going to be at the Sheridan Mesa at Wrigleyville West Now, if anybody's a Cubs fan, literally you go to the west end of the hotel parking lot and you're at Cubs training camp. It's right in the center of Mesa, Tempe. We're half a mile from the 101, the 202 highways, which are the main arteries going through the valley. You can get to pretty much everything around here in about 20 minutes to a half an hour. There's also a lot of places to eat. Within basically a quarter mile, we've got two large malls that have a lot of food stuff and a lot of shopping things for the non-rail people. Like I said, again, Wednesday, we're going to have op sessions. When you go to the website, which you see down there, sn3symposium.com, it leads you to your registration page. And one of the things on there is to check the box if you want to be included in an operating session. Once we get going on this thing, probably about a month before, maybe 6 weeks, we'll start picking people out and we'll have all our operating sessions set up, and we'll offer a choice of layouts that you can sign up for. Thursday, our registration is going to open up with our vendor and clinic rooms and layout tours. And Thursday night, we're going to offer a hospitality night at the hotel has a bar that's right, actually it's at the pool. It's an outside venue. And we're going to do a hospitality night with a cash bar, and we're going to have some kind of pizza and wings and snacks and things like that, just to kind of have a get together for people that are just arriving or that have been there for a little bit. Friday, of course, will be basically just all day clinics, layout tours, etc. We're going to try to end everything by about 5 or 6 o'clock. So again, people can do a little bit of get together and enjoy themselves. We are going to do something a little different. We had an issue this last symposium with the vendor room that there was a individual that came in and bought tables at the vendor room and basically was having a fire sale with a layout that he had to get rid of. And because of that, the vendor suffered greatly. I mean, I don't think they sold anything because he was basically giving stuff away. And so our vendor room this year will be strictly commercial vendors, but we are going to offer to kind of offset that for people that want to sell stuff or bring stuff. Saturday night after our general membership meeting, we're going to have an all-scale swap meet. And we'll have tables available. You can buy the tables and come in. It's also going to be open for the local people. So we're getting a little interest. You mentioned before the ON30, there's a big ON30 crowd around here. A lot of those guys are actually signed up to come to the symposium and are interested in participating with the swap meet. We'll also have our contest room will be open Friday morning all the way through Saturday. At noon, it will close down, and we'll judge the models and decide, you know, who's going to get what for our presentation of awards at our general member meeting, which will be held Saturday night at 5:30. We're going to have layout tours every day, and including Sunday. Sunday's not a day for the symposium, but because we have quite a few guys that have layouts up north of us in Prescott area, Sedona, and a lot of guys in Tucson that want to be included with the layout tours, we're going to have them open on those days. So if people want to take that day, and or if they're traveling that direction, these layouts will be open for people to visit. See what else I've got here. Yeah, it's pretty much it. So we invite everybody to show up. You don't have to be an SN3 guy to show up, but it's going to be all SN3 all the time. So welcome everybody to join us here in the Valley. Any questions?
Jim, I've got one. The SN3 symposium, is that I've never been to one of them, so I don't know anything about them. That's the reason I'm asking. Is this like an S-scale convention? I mean, is the SN3 community that large that they need their own convention? I just don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a symposium, which, by definition is like-minded people getting together in a group to discuss their interest, which is SN3. But it also includes S-scale and standard gauge, but it's primarily the narrow gauge guys. And yeah, we do this every year somewhere. Last year we did it up at Virginia City. And the year before that, we were in Albuquerque. Next year, I believe we're going to be, actually 2025, I believe it's going to be in Texas.
Mhm.
So we have one every year, and it's usually pretty good. We get a fair amount of vendors in. I'm looking to have a really good vendor supply. If you go to the website, when you go on there, you'll see there'll be a list of vendors and all the information. Oh, the other thing is I forgot to mention, the Sheridan, like I said, we worked with them and they've really been over backwards. And we got a room rate of $148 a night, which is for that hotel is about $100 off a room per night. And it also includes a hot breakfast in their hotel cafeteria. They have 3 cafeterias and bars inside, or restaurants inside the hotel itself. So they're offering the room for $148, and there's included is a hot buffet breakfast.
Gotcha. Anybody have any more for Jim? Jim, thank you so much for being here this evening. I really do appreciate it. And if you'd like to come back closer to the date, you're most welcome.
Yeah, we'll definitely take you up on that. There'll be some ads in Narrow Gauge Gazette and a few of the other ones that'll help with this once we get going a little more. And I'll be at the National Narrow Gauge Convention at the end of the month in Denver. And we're going to have a table there to answer any questions and help with registrations. Oh, the one thing is too, I forgot, we have pre-registration up until January, which are basically $75 for registration. After that, it'll be $85.
Anybody got any questions? Jim, thanks so much.
Sure, thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Well,
Jim?
now
Jim?
I've got,
It's Pat here. Do you want me to run that John Weigel video before you move along? We didn't do that. Or do you want me to just leave it?
Yeah, let's just leave it, Pat.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But now I want to introduce 2 O-Scale people. David Vaughn, who's president of O-Scale Central, and Eric Peterson, who is a member of the organization and heavily involved with just about everything to do with that association, best I can tell. And they're going to be talking about O-Scale. So gentlemen, welcome. Thank you so much.
Here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry?
Glad to be here. I think
Oh.
David's ready to go.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, but you're breaking up.
Okay, I'm not sure I can do anything about that. Any better now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, let's try it. Okay, first, Jim, I'd like to thank you for becoming a sustaining member of O-Scale Central and expressing your confidence in the future of the organization. We've come a long way. We have a long way to go. We're happy to have you as a member. Second,
Looking forward to it, David. Thank you.
great. Second, I want to tell you that as of the next meeting of the Board of Directors, O-Scale Central is going to take sponsorship for the O-Scale little column or corner that you have on the program with David Schultz as your regular guest. We feel responsible to help keeping New Tracks on track. and we're happy to kick in a bit toward the expenses. So thank you very much for your attention to O-Scale. We are a small group, but we are feisty, and we appreciate the support that we get. Appreciate your participation.
Well, thank you so very much, and we're honored to have you as the sponsor for that. We think it's important because O-Scale is something that a lot of people have questions about. And frankly, there's a lot of people that are concerned about the future of O-Scale. So that's why I wanted you and Eric here this evening, maybe to talk to us a little bit about, where we are, where we're going here, and what O-Scale Central is doing to try to help us get there.
Well, thank you. And let me introduce Eric not only as an active member of O-Scale Central, he is our vice president, and like any other right-hand man, we could not be doing the things that we are doing without his active participation and support. And I want to do a couple of quick bullet points, and then Eric can speak to some very specific things that are happening that are pretty exciting in O-Scale right now. But I want to put in a plug for the scale in a way that may give a bigger picture. Without getting too philosophical about it, every scale has a different relationship between the model and the modeler and the modeling. And with O-Scale, you really get the opportunity to be up close and personal with your models and your modeling in ways that are very difficult to do in other scales. I've been in HO scale, N scale, G scale, and Z scale. And I assure you that just from the relationship with the mass and the detail and the opportunity to really get close to the models, and for everyone who is in another scale, love and respect the scale you're in, but recognize that there will come a time when you're going to get bifocular, and there's going to come a time when you will need fresh challenges. And one of the things that we are doing through O-Scale Central is to try and keep the scale in front of people, so when it comes time to undertake those fresh challenges, that O-Scale 2-Rail is there, is available, has product.
David, I'm afraid we lost you.
We lost him.
We lost David. So he was talking about a variety of the advantages of O-Scale 2-Rail as we know it, and just a few things that are coming up. First of all, we'll have a presence in August at the O-Scale at the NMRA National. That's August 20 through 26 in the Dallas, Texas area. We also are pleased that the March meet in the Chicago area has done so well and has a good future now that it's been reinvigorated and reestablished. That is the largest O-Scale 2-Rail event each year in North America. Our website has quite a bit of information on it, and oscalecentral.com is the location. And some of the things that are on there is, first of all, a calendar of events. And that calendar events are also shared with the NMRA National website calendar, so that things have a wider visibility. There's a lot of background information on there about O-Scale and everything from starting out to more advanced information. It takes some exploring, but it's out there available. The product guide, it's a free operation to list any vendors or suppliers that want to have their information available, and there's some search capability there to look for something that you're interested in getting or learning more about. So I think those are just a few of the starting points where we are, Jim. And the last couple of years have really advanced the availability of information, and the contacts are going on. As an example, our Central Indiana division of the NMRA is having a one-day train show in November 18th in Danville, Indiana. And we will have a separate room for O and S scale at that event. The event is at county fairgrounds, so we have a very economical cost for, first of all, admissions. It's $3 at the door. Tables in the O and S scale room are 6 foot long, and they're $12 a table. And in the rest of the train show, tables are 8-foot tables for $16 a table. I don't think there are very many places out there today where you can go to that kind of a meet train show event and have those kind of very economical costs for what's going on. So those are just a few things of what's going on, Jim.
You know, the same way that Jim Spice was talking a few minutes ago about his SM3 symposium, I'd love to be able to have more of the shows and more of the events spotlighted on our show like this, because I think it's important for the modelers out there to know where they can go and maybe meet some people and see some friends they maybe haven't seen for a while and enjoy the hobby in a different way. And you know, it's amazing to me that more organizations don't want to come on the show and talk about the events that they have and what's upcoming, because I'm just not sure that outside of a local small radius around where that meet is going to be held, that people even hear about what's happening in different parts of our hobby. And that's what we're trying to do on our show. So if your organization, O Scale Central, or different parts of it around the country would love to come on the show and talk as Jim did in the future, we'd love to have you. Just let me know and we'll schedule a time for that to happen. Eric, we hear an awful lot about, for example, I mentioned before the show started that I was talking with a hobby shop owner, a brick and mortar hobby shop owner that has a significant inventory of O-scale brass right now. And he'd love to sell it at a great price if he can get somebody that's interested in buying it. Now, if there are O-scalers out there that would be interested in this, I'll be glad if they'll send me an email. And my email address is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. I'll be glad to put you in touch with this individual who has these brass O-scale pieces. If O Scale Central would be interested in trying to help the model railroad hobby shops that frankly are having trouble maybe communicating what they have available to the audience at wide, I'll be glad to provide that kind of information to them, and then you guys can maybe help these kind of hobby shops out, because from what I understand, the hobby shops are in a position where people are dying off in our hobby, and they're coming to the local hobby shop, if there is one, to help them dispose of the railroad equipment, and a lot of it is brass, and a lot of it is O-scale. So I think there's a lot of things on the market out there, but I'm not sure the vast majority of O-scalers know it's available.
Well, I think there's several ways that we could certainly contact that individual. Is this secondhand or used material, or is it new? I'm assuming it's used.
I think some of it is new and some of it is secondhand.
Okay, well, just so everybody on here knows, there's several different places to start with. One is obviously attend the March meet in Chicago and bring a substantial portion of that material there to sell. That is the primary in-person time to sell stuff. The other thing is that there's O-Scale Yard Sale is a group online. It's where there's a lot of transactions going on, just individual to individual without involving eBay and other organizations like that that seem to make things more complicated at times. And also, I'm sure we could also list the hobby shop on the on our product and supplier guide that's on our website. So there's just a quick few off the top of my head that are out there to help people communicate with others that are buying things in O-Scale 2-rail.
Well, if it would be possible, maybe I could just try to put you in touch with this individual and then you could take it from there.
That sounds good. Just get me the information, his contact information. I'll be glad to contact him.
What's it cost to join the O-Scale Central?
$24 a year.
And what do I get for $24 a year?
Well, what you get is a quarterly newsletter. You get information about what's going on, and you're having a better opportunity to meet others that have common interests. And of course, it also supports the activities that are going on within O-Scale Central that we work to improve the communications and just have more of a presence out there for O-Scale. It's not just an advocacy group, it's a social group, and we're working to improve the communications and information flowing between O-Scale modelers all the time.
And you have a website?
Yes, we do. oscalecentral.com.
Got it. Anybody have any questions for Eric? Or I don't know if David got back or not, but Eric's still here.
Questions?
Eric, do you ever have a open house? I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. And
Okay.
I was just curious if you have a local group that you have open houses with your O-Scale layouts. It'd be interesting to drive up there. It's only an hour away.
Yeah. Well, we have one coming up at my house for the NMRA Central Indiana Division members. Or Tom, are you a member of the NMRA?
I was. I don't think I've kept it current.
Well, that's a great opportunity to be part of it, and a part of the activities that are going on is this central area. There are layouts open at different meets that are around the country. There's the Chicago meet, and there's a few layouts that are open in March for that. And then there's other meets listed on our website. Several of them are out east in Pennsylvania, a couple times a year for one or two of them. And they usually have some area layouts open as well. So that's some of the opportunities.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. A couple of quick things. Number one, August 12th in Strasburg, Pennsylvania is a 2-rail O-Scale show. And although I don't have the date with me, Al Judy in Harrisburg puts out both narrow gauge and all O-Scale shows. They are really good. We are blessed to have them in the Mid-Atlantic area. There are several things that indicate the level of energy that's going on in 2-rail O-Scale. Number one, Katie has just come out with a full line of O-Scale freight trucks. They already have couplers, and if they've got couplers and trucks, could kits be far behind? And we're getting some interesting people nibbling from other scales. So there's a wonderful company in HO called Tangent Scale Models. They do fantastic work. They have come out with their first O-Scale model and it is a beautiful 3-dome Union tank car. And we are hoping for more activity from Tangent. We'd love to have them come over to the scale. There are some other HO scale manufacturers who are nibbling around the edges. And finally, the excitement that goes on 3D printing and on resin casting is just tailor-made for O scale, for the level of detail you can get and for the short runs that you need, because we remain a small scale. So we've got a lot of things going on. That's just a short list, and we've got a number of shows and ways to participate. As a small scale in numbers, we are a good group and we are very helpful. So we would be delighted to have people nibble. You don't have to give up your HO scale or your N scale to try an O scale car kit or other project. Come to an O scale 2-rail show, go to an O scale club open house. We're out there and we are moving up. It's an exciting time to be in 2-rail O scale.
David, I was telling Eric before, the same as I had Jim Spice come in, talk about the Smithsonian symposium that he's doing. We're trying to get other shows and other groups to come on the show and talk about the shows that they're putting on. Al, of course, has been on. Al will be on tomorrow night on a different show for us. But we're serious, you know, if O Scale Central has shows or their group has shows that they'd like to talk about or like to get promoted, we'd love for them to come on the show and talk about them like Jim did. Because outside of the small area where a lot of the shows are held, the communication is just not there, best we can determine here. And that's one of the things that we're trying to change a little bit.
Jim,
We'll be back
let
to
me
you.
let me give you some information. I just called up the O Scale Central calendar, and so here's what's going on for the rest of the year. August 12th is the Strasbourg train show that David just mentioned. The NMRA National is out in the Dallas area. National Convention, the 20th through 27th, will have a display layout. We have several O scale based clinics, and there's 2 different bus tours that have O scale 2-rail layouts on them. The Southern New England Model Railroad O scale show is September 23rd. October 14th, Strasbourg train show. October 27th through 29th, the Southwest O scale meet in the Fort Worth area. November 4th, O scale meet in the Cleveland area. And like I said, November 18th, we have a Central Indiana train show that is including O scale and S scale. And then next year, March 14th through 18th is the March meet in the Chicago area. So there's a rundown of what the upcoming O scale events are that we have. And I'm sure there's other out there that we may not have listed on our calendar, but you can see that there's significant activity out there and opportunities across the country to interact with other O scale modelers.
Right. One of the things, of course, that we're interested in with all of those shows is we want to promote our scholarship program as much as we possibly can. So if there could be a way that we could have one of our banners or our promotional material at those shows, then that would be great for us. And of course, Al Judy, we're at his show and we're at the NMRA show and that kind of thing. But a lot of the smaller shows that O scale has and S scale has, we don't know about them. We don't hear about them unless I pick it up on a Facebook post or something like that. And so, to the degree that O Scale Central might be interested in helping us with that, we would certainly appreciate it.
we'll get back to you. Thank you. We are very encouraged by your scholarship program and the first year results. So congratulations.
Well, we're very happy with it and looking forward to really expand it this year, David. Does anybody have any questions for David or Eric? Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this evening. I really do appreciate it. And like I say, if you can just keep us updated about what you're doing and what we need to know about, we sure would appreciate it.
Thank you. I got some problems with my stability of my access to the meeting, so I'm going to jump off after this. But thank you very much, Jim. We really appreciate it and appreciate what you're doing with New Tracks in the larger sense. It's great.
Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it. And David, don't worry about having problems. It's not like we don't.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. All right. Now I want to turn to Gary Shurgold, MMR, who's going to build a machine shop for us. Gary, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim. Let's see here. Do a share screen. And okay. Whoop.
Can I hit up your dinner now?
Sorry. What we're going to talk about on this is the building of the my rendition on my CN layout of the machine shop.
Gary, can I get you to stop sharing and share your other screen?
Okay,
Not the screen you're sharing, but share the other one. So when you go back into it, pick the one that you're gonna have to stop sharing.
Sorry.
And then share the other screen, your second screen, the one that the slide presentation's on. Hang on, I'll stop your sharing. So reshare and share and pick the second screen.
Okay. Right here. How's that?
Okay, now hit the slideshow icon and see what happens.
Yep. How's that?
That's great. That's perfect.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. This is the, as I say, on my my model CN, and this is my rendition of the CN shop on the layout. This is the second shop that I built. It's independent of the engine house, and we're going to go through. This is a 5 segment presentation. And today we're going to go through the process of scratch building the machine shop in 5 phases. Phase one is the exterior walls and roof structure, which we're going to talk about tonight. Phase 2 will be the front doors and roof construction. Then on phase 3, we're going to finish the interior and exterior walls. Just show you a new, a different way of finishing, like painting walls on a cast structure. And then we're going to be doing finishing the windows and roof completion. And then on phase 5, we're going to showcasing the finished building, which is completely finished interior and lighting. So the first, we'll go to phase 1 tonight, and that's exterior walls and roof structure. Okay, these are the basic pieces that I had put together. You can see 3 walls and the front entrance supporting walls. These castings, I've had these castings for probably a good 30 years now. They were done when way back when I first got into model railroading, and a friend of mine, we got together and cast these walls. I have quite a large collection of them. So what I did was I took the 3 walls and the 2 door entrance walls. And they were flipped over, and on the backside where these walls will connect to each other, you have to do some freehand carving to match the brick structure that's on the facing wall, because when these are together, there's a space. So this has to be scribed, and you can fill in your brick and things like that. So that when these come together, as you can see here, you can see this is where you've carved that little piece that's on the back of the casting, and they will fit together like so. The building is glued together and then squared up. And I took a piece of wood to join and make sure that these walls are all square and the top is all even all the way around. The building itself is 32 feet square across the front. And if you look at the building, you can see the joints here where it's been glued together. So what we're going to do is, again, you can see the joints. So we're going to take a little bit of plaster, mix it up. Just need very, very thin plaster, and basically put it on where all the joints meet, as you can see what I've done here. Same as on the back side, all the way around where each joint meets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to carve that. Take a sharp object and do your carving, blend everything in so the lines now match, the brickwork now matches, and the seams disappear. See here where we've picked away at it, put in the lines, everything now comes together. This all starts to blend in as one piece. Now we go on to the roof trusses. You can pick out the type of roof truss that you want. There are a number of them. Just go online and bring up roof truss. I just picked a simple it's called a think truss. That's what I wanted to use. So I needed 7 of them. So what I did was I cut up my lumber. As you can see, these are square and rectangular lumber. I keep losing my... So that was cut up, enough material to make trusses. And I followed the jig that I had made just to scale, and using the magnets to hold things in place. I then lay the wood in, as you can see, cut the angles and place them in, and just kept proceeding through until all 7 of the trusses were made. Magnets used as a jig to hold the framing in place. Beautiful. This is a forming, there's a metal. This came from the bottom of an old computer. And that's what I use for when I'm doing buildings. Okay, a little bit of sanding, clean them all up. When you do the sanding, of course, all the joints start to blend together. You get a nice finish. And then they're all lined up in the jig. You can start putting cross braces on the bottoms and along the upper part. And then you end up with something like this, so that your roof is then come together. Now, when you're measuring your roof, you want it to go from outside, just slightly inside your top of your building, and of course overhang on each side. So there we are with some of the cross bracing put on the top. And that's upside down, just to give you an idea of what the things look like. And then, of course, put in place, checking your measurements and see what your overhang will be. And next week, we'll talk about phase 2, where we do the front doors and finish the roof construction. Thanks, Jim.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, hi, Gary. Did you use regular hydrocal for the casting?
Yeah, the castings are plaster, and it is 2 different types of plaster were used.
And what kind of glue did you put them together with?
You can use sticky glue, or you can use CA.
All right, thanks.
Gary, really appreciate it. Looking forward to next week.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you. All right, now I'd like to turn to Bob Davidson for his dollar store treasures.
Thank you, Jim. Let me share screen and we'll get going. I want to take a moment. I've gotten actually several emails from folks just saying that they're taking advantage of some of these rare treasures that we've been finding. So I appreciate that. So if you're new to this is dollar store treasures, or as Greg said, $1.25 store treasures. Everything you see here I got from the local Dollar Tree shop. And once again, tonight we're going to start off in the craft aisle. And I saw these and I was very, let me go back. I saw these, I was intrigued. Because oil pastels I've used for artwork, but I was wondering how I could use them, if I could use them in modeling. Because an oil pastel is kind of like a crayon. But this is 12 colors. They're about 2 inches long and about 3/8 of an inch in diameter, each pastel. And I played around with it. And what I found is that if you float some denatured alcohol on a surface and then use the pastels, and then you can work it in with a brush, it actually dissolves and becomes just like a wash. So that's kind of interesting. And as I say, for $1.25, you get 12 different colors. I don't know that you'd use the hot pink, but I don't know what you're modeling, so that's up to you. But just interesting find this week. Also in the craft aisle was this palette knife set, and I'm starting to do some work with hydrocal and other stuff, and these are just a really neat. They're kind of scale size. They're not big plastering knives, and you get 3 of them for $1.25. So they clean up real easy, and I thought that was a really kind of cool find. So this was interesting. I had to turn the picture on its side. So this is the stuff that they use with the, Cricut machines. Well, they had a whole wall display of these. What this is vinyl with an adhesive backing. And they have both permanent adhesive and temporary adhesive. And as you can see here, each roll is 12 inches by 48 inches. There's an incredible number of colors and textures, and I use the temporary stuff for masking. It's very easy to cut with a knife or scalpel. And the permanent, if you're doing need to smooth out something, or like I say, just take a look. If you do have a store, I was pretty impressed with some of the textures and effect colors that they have. So just an interesting substrate. Then we're with school getting ready to, the shopping season is on. So I went down the school aisle, and this was just an interesting little find for $1. It's a pretty decent size squeeze bottle of just white glue. It does dry clear, and it certainly is very good for paper, cardboard, or cardstock. And along with it, you get a little glue stick, and actually it's a pretty good quality glue stick. I was very impressed with, and it's large. It's triangular in shape, and it's probably 1 inch on a side. So again, lots of things are showing up now. If you need pencils, or I don't know if you remember way back when in one of the workshops, I showed a small protractor and triangles that I had found. Those are all starting to show up now in the school aisles at the dollar store. So do take advantage of it. Finally, just one unrelated thing. I just want everyone to know that the future of our hobby is set. My grandkids got their first little wooden rail, and here you can see they're doing track planning right now. So hopefully we'll be set for the next generation or two. So that's Dollar Store Treasures for tonight. I'll stop sharing and turn it back to you, Jim.
And I'll tell you this, my wife told me this afternoon, that's where she buys our garlic bread. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, there is something that I will mention, but I haven't been able to find it lately, but I'll hold this up. I found this at one of our local dollar stores, and this is a spray that that manicurists use to force dry the glue when they put on fake nails.
Huh.
Well, guess what? It worked. It's a CA accelerator. And I bought 10 cans of this for $1 a can.
Jeez.
So you never know what you're going to find out there, and a lot cheaper than the 10 or 12 bucks that they sell for usually.
Now, how do you use it, Bob, with the glue?
If you're doing a CA joint, you just spray it right on the joint. It has no color, and it doesn't affect anything that if it's painted already. And it instantly dries the CA, whether it's clear, thin, or medium, or whatever.
So you put the glue on, right? The pieces
Put
are
the
together.
glue on, and then you spray out.
And then you just whip that out and spray it on.
You just spray it over the joint, and it instantly dries.
I'll be darned.
I'll be darned.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right, next is Mr. Tom Farrell and his scratch building of his layout. Tonight, he's going to show us a station that he's put together. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This evening, I'm going to jump off of my Salt Creek River Basin because I was waiting for some things to arrive, and they just arrived today. So what I'm going to do today is feature a scratch build depot that I made. I'd like to pontificate a little bit on scratch building and O scale. We had a couple fellows on from O scale. I think everybody knows I model an ON30. We're considered the somewhat of the black sheep of the O scale world, but ON30 provides, as far as the structures are concerned, the mass or the size of O scale. So it's very, very good for scratch building. And Jim had me on a modeling lifestyle back in November of this past year, and I started out at N scale in 1967 when N scale was in its infancy, and I modeled in N scale to 2005, and then I switched to O scale, ON30 specifically, because I liked the scratch build, and it was just too difficult even though I did scratch build an N scale, even as a child, I just couldn't achieve the detail that I wanted. So I switched scales. And those two fellas mentioned that, as we get older, I wear these, like all of you that are my age or more, these reading glasses so I can actually see my modeling. O scale is just easier for that than N scale or even HO scale. And the other reason I mentioned, or I'm always pushing scratch building, is I scratch build for the uniqueness of the models that I create. But the side benefit or the other driver is the costs. The costs are significantly less. This depot that I'm going to show you this evening, total material costs can't approach $20 or $30 tops. But if there was such a kit available, it would exceed $100, $150 easy for a laser cut kit. So the benefits of scratch building are the uniqueness of the models. These are one-offs that nobody has. And there's a huge cost advantage. It's not necessarily my driver, but it can be a driver to keep the costs down with discretionary income. So anyway, enough about that. So this is the finished model, and I'm going to show you how I made it. Every time I show one of these, I just want to demonstrate that with commercial siding, commercial windows, commercial roofing materials, and scale lumber, scratch building is not as difficult as people might believe it to be. It is really a relatively simple process that just requires patience. And, if you don't have subject matter, look at an old railroad magazine or go online and look at Google for structures. You don't need a precise drawing. I mean, I've said over and over, when I do these structures, I don't really even have a plan. But these are the basic materials. So, for example, Mount Albert scale lumber is one of my choice suppliers. These are the basswood sheets. I've switched to acrylic paint. On this particular model, I use base color of this lemon custard. These are like $1 or less per bottle, and this is white. These are the alcohol washes. I posted these, but on this particular model, I used my own mix of just simply isopropyl alcohol and India ink. And then this is the whole key to the weathering. I use this wire brush. I'll go over the technique again, but the concept is base color, scratch it, hit it with alcohol wash, and highlight it with white. I do this over and over and over, and I think it gives you really contest-winning results, my humble opinion. I always start with a piece of plywood, aircraft grade plywood, typically 3/8 or 5/8 inch thick. This is the only planning I do. I just outline the general, where the foundation goes, and I'm off and running. I didn't even have a reference photo on this one. So I take that scale lumber and I simply sketch out the sides with a ruler and a modeler square. So that's the other thing about scratch building. I only use really a X-Acto knife, a modeler square, and a metal ruler. Those are the three tools that you need to do this quality of modeling. It's really all you really need. So you sketch it out, cut it out using your square. One of the key things when you scratch build is you want to keep everything parallel, perpendicular, square. It just makes for easier assembly. So I'm very careful to maintain the squareness of all these walls and cutouts. And then this is the model going together. Areas that aren't critical, for example, here, I know there's going to be a roof here and this is going to be covered. So this might look sloppy, and these corners might look a little rough too, but they're all going to be trimmed out. So you don't even need to have this precision cut. What I like to do is I like to match this siding so that they're on the same horizon. Because when you do trim it out, it just looks better when the sidings match. So I do pay a little attention to that. And I always brace my models with this 1/4-inch basswood. It just makes for a very stout model. And I typically build the foundations up with that 1/4-inch material as well. Whole point here is there's nothing here that anybody that has ever modeled anything couldn't do. This is not difficult modeling. It's just a question of patience. So here we are looking down at the model. You see the stout. I might go a little crazy with the bracing, but like I've said over and over, it costs virtually nothing. And why not make it so it'll last into the next millennium? So here's the model coming along. I've added this addition here. One of my other tricks that I always use is I typically like to use multiple sidings on my buildings when possible, just to add variety. So this has a board and batten. This has a siding. I do that to have the appearances that at some point in the future, or some point in the past, they added this addition to the side of the building. It just adds visual interest to the whole idea. This is actually HO board and batten. I don't know why I had a sheet of that, but I thought, let me just use that. And again, my signature bracing inside. There's a little photograph and a little more clarity. Again, you can get a little sloppy here because it's going to be trimmed out. Here's the first. I paint the inside of my buildings black because I don't typically detail the inside. So when you look through the windows, the acetate windows, you can't see anything. That's by design. This yellow is what I call, this is that lemon yellow. It's some obnoxious color at this point, but it's my base color. So it looks very loud here, but as you see, it'll get toned down. So again, you're just painting with a brush. Because this paint's water-based, if you don't brace it like this, if some people pre-paint their walls on the bench, I always paint my walls on a finished, with the model built up. The model built up with combination of this bracing, you won't get any warpage of the walls. If you use these acrylic paints and if you paint them on the bench and you don't have them braced, they can warp. I never have that issue because I brace them in, I paint it while the structure's up. So here's the technique I alluded to. Now that looks nothing like that yellow. So it's a trick, that's all I do is I use that scratching tool that I showed you in the beginning. I scratch this yellow up till I reach the base material. Then I hit it with one of those alcohol washes that penetrates into the exposed wood that I've scratched. And then I take a dry brush of the white that I showed you earlier, same acrylic, and I highlight it once everything's dry. In this particular case, I decided to paint the perimeter green just for a little decoration, but same technique. I use this Kelly green, an acrylic paint, scratched it with my scratcher, hit it with the black alcohol wash, and then with a dry brush of white, I highlighted the boards. And you can also see the beginning of the deck that I'm going to put in here. There's an up close. No, for virtually no effort, that looks pretty spectacular, you know. So it's not difficult to do. Base coat, scratch, alcohol wash, highlights. Simple process. Here's the beginning of the trimming out of the building. The windows and doors are test fit. This is the decking. Now this decking will be toned down, and these windows will be weathered. This is just scale 1x6 material, pre-painted, and then super glued just around the entire building, covering up all my sins on the corners of the building. Here's the beginnings of the roof. This is 1/16 inch plywood, super glued on there. Again, you can be sloppy because it's going to get covered with shingles. This is plywood here. This is a little piece of balsa wood. This is a 2x8, just glued on there. Oh. This brick here, I went online and I looked for basically brick images. So I wanted to use brick here. Remember, this photograph's about twice as large as the building is. But even at that magnification, that brick's holding up pretty well for just being paper. But it cost nothing. I just pulled off the image, brought it into PowerPoint, printed it out on my inkjet printer. With Elmer's glue, I glued it around the perimeter of the building, and now I have a brick foundation. I added trim pieces across here. That'll be touched up there. And then here's these are just little pieces that are glued. You'll see a better picture here in a moment. Those are guidelines I put on the roof. Not really showing anything different here. These are you can see the two different sidings here. And I did carry the color across the across the other material as well. This is more of the roof, just a simple triangle of 1/16 inch plywood. I like to use plywood for these roofs because it's very thin and is very strong. And here's the side. So these are just little look like 2x8s that are just super glued up there. They're cut on an angle here. They're measured out typically in 16 or 24 scale inches. I think these are 24 inches centers. They're just made on the bench, pre-painted and super glued up there. There's that brick paper. I mean, that doesn't look too shabby for just a printout. These windows aren't weathered yet, but this isn't touched up. But the model's moving along here. There's a little pullback shot showing the overall look. This is still not weathered, but the roof's on. These are those evergreen, real cedar, laser cut shingles. This is where the sign will go for the depot. It's just a little piece of 1/16 inch plywood. And I think I use 1x2s just to frame it out. And there it is toned back. So I've washed that deck out so it's not so stark brown. I've washed this out a little bit. I've hit this roof with dry brush with that white acrylic. I've popped in my sign, which is nothing more than PowerPoint again, where I just did a text Turtle Creek, and everything's toned down. I've added some details on this. Some tools here. I create as much as I can on the bench work, and then I drop this into the layout. There's the other side. See, that's not quite weathered yet, but the white highlighting does wonders for toning all these colors down. This is the back of the building. It's always my joke, no dumping, and I always have junk there, just a little joke. And then these are just right off of Google searches. This is a detail from somebody, probably Grantline. The other side of the building. Really nothing to this, just you start here and you glue one, you glue another, you glue another, you glue another, you just keep, it's just a question of patience. Then when you're all done, you hit it with blacks and whites, just dry brushing. The whole thing's been dry brushed with white. Yeah, I haven't got to the door there yet. But this is a nice little model and it's unique. There isn't such a thing as a kit of a little depot like this that I'm aware of in O scale. And I'm guessing, not counting the figures and the detail items, I'm guessing it's with the cost of the siding, the shakes, and the doors, that it's $20, $30 maximum.
And that's O scale.
That's O scale. And that's a, I mean, that's a nice little building. I get a lot of compliments on this guy. And they're enjoyable little things. And, you know, the step-by-step, any of you guys out there could do this. You don't need to be a world-class modeler. You just need to have patience. And you're using commercial materials. If you want to take scratch building even further, you can cut your own shakes out of cigar box material, or you can make your own windows. I mean, you can take it as far as you want, but even with commercial siding, commercial windows, commercial shakes, you know, you don't have big money into this. And it, as a hobby, it's nice to say that I built this, this is mine, it's scratch built. You know, there's a certain amount of pride in finishing a laser cut kit, of course, but to me, it's even more meaningful to me personally to say virtually everything on my layout is scratch built, unique and one of a kind.
I don't think there's any greater thrill in the world.
No, I just, after I got done saying kits are bad, I could have made these boats. This is going to be next week. I'll get back to my Salt Creek River Basin. I've been waiting for these boats to arrive. I'll build these kits. This is an abandoned, rusted hull. It's too long for my layout, so I'm going to cut this thing up, make it shorter, and I'm going to build this as one of these two versions. Once they're in my Salt Creek River Basin, once they're finished, then I can cast my river and move on. So, but next week I'll probably fit. These are resin kits, and I'll feature this next week. And that's it, folks. If there's
Tom, this is Greg. I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm in a scratch build right now, and I've recently started using some of the aircraft grade plywood for roofing instead of basswood, and I'm going through a lot of X-Acto blades with it. Is there any trick to cutting that stuff, or?
Just what you said, we're going to go through a lot of
Okay.
if it's thicker than 1/16 of an inch.
No, I'm mostly using 1/16 and 1/32.
Yeah. No, the only if it gets any thicker than that, I use my little micro mark table saw, this little tiny saw. That's the only trick I have. You could, if you have one of those, obviously, if you have one of those, you would have used it. But if you have a little, I have a micro mark saw. Has like a 3 or 4 inch blade, something real small, and I don't remember what that saw costs, but in the neighborhood of $100, let's say, it'll cut right through that. They have 2 versions of that saw, a very expensive one, and I have the cheapie. And I've had the cheapie one for 10 years. I've never changed the blade ever. And it'll go right through it'll go through that plywood like it isn't even there.
Okay, well, that's good news. So I think so far I've been sticking with the thin grades just because I wanted the thinness was the reason I went to the plywood. So
it makes for that 1/16 inch material makes for great roofing material because you want the roof. When I put these boards on here, the trim boards, you don't want to see that you have a really heavy basswood or heavy plywood roof.
Yeah.
Virtually disappears when you use 1/16 inch material and then you shake it,
Yep, that's why I did it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me. Yeah.
Well, next I want to introduce another great modeler, Steve Sherrill. And Steve started a great new segment on our show saying it's about what do you want to talk about? So Steve, what do you want to talk about?
Well, tonight we're going to talk about going to train shows.
Got it.
We're coming up in that season now where we're going to get more and more train shows are going to be available to go to and attend. I know myself, during my modeling time before the train shows, I have a want list. And I usually jot down what I want on an index card and then, of course, leave it at home. But no, I take it with me. So I have a shopping list, just like you would go to any store. And when I get to the train shows, I start looking for these items. Mainly, I look for things that I can't get at the local hobby shop or that maybe somebody is selling off a supply of parts. And so I'm looking for certain items. And I didn't know if what the fellow modelers who are on this site, what they do when they go to train shows. Are they just going to look at the new products, going because they have nothing to do on that Saturday? Are they going to see friends, going to see the layouts that are there to get ideas? Or are they doing all these things? So I thought maybe tonight we could maybe talk about some of the things that we're looking for and that we do when we go to train shows. And also, how do you select which train show you're going to attend? Are you going to go to one that you had good results last year? Or are you going to go to a big one, which maybe has 800-900 tables? Just why are you going to this particular train show? Last year, I actually found a couple of train shows that I had never been to, and I was really surprised at what they had there, the items, and the prices were very reasonable for what I saw for sale, and I picked up some things that I probably wouldn't have picked up at any other time, but they were just some items that, maybe I wanted to get, but they weren't at the top of my list. So I'd like to hear from some of the guys on here and what they are looking for when they go to train shows. And again, how you select which ones you go to. So if anybody has some input, I would certainly appreciate some ideas that you have.
I go to train shows to meet all you guys in person. I mean, it's the interaction with everybody is just another dimension of the hobby that just makes it so interesting to me. So it's great to see
Yeah, I
everybody
know.
online.
I know.
but
Yeah, when we go with ON30, it's a more of a friendship type of thing. We're going to see the guys maybe we haven't seen in a year or 2 years, and just share ideas with them. And that's one of the wonderful things about knowing these fellow modelers for a long time, is being able to share ideas, and that's a good way to get together. But other people go and they look for items like windows, for instance. You know, you had a special window in your model there. I guess, I don't know, was it Grant or Titchy?
Last time I was at Al Judy's show, I bought a bag full of windows from Macomber, you know, so I go to buy supplies sometimes too, you know, just to support the vendors.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to be able to get those 3D printed, you know.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to find
I'll say one more thing though.
that kind of.
Everybody else, but I went to an NMRA national show, and I saw, you guys probably know Tony Keister. You know, he's fairly famous model railroader with Model Railroading magazine. And I saw his name tag, and I'd never met him before, and I walked up, introduced myself. He was very standoffish. You know, I just thought that was kind of weird, which at our ON30 shows, you know, everybody's a little more relaxed. You know what I mean? I don't mean to say that this is true of every modeler out there, but one thing I can say for sure, the ON30 shows are a lot more casual, you know. Anyway, and I'll be quiet now. I talked enough tonight.
Yeah, I see we have some people here who live in Canada. What are the train shows like in Canada? If you guys could, you know, give us some input on, you know, how often are they? Are they once a year, twice a year, local? Do you have to travel? I don't know if anybody from Canada on here wants to say anything.
Larry McDonald here in Toronto. It's much like down in the States. It's not the largest shows that you have down there, like the NMRA National, the Narrow Gauge National. But you know me from being down at Kimberton. We used to love coming down there. Now, narrow gauge wise, we don't have like the ON3 show that Al Judy's putting on, and the one that used to be down at Kimberton. But there is one, and it's growing, and I think it's being held in Hamilton, which is not that far. That's about maybe 40 minutes from the border. And so we get the Americans coming across for that too. It's hard for us to draw, like a lot of the manufacturers and brass importers are in the States. And for them to come to shows and bring their displays, they have a lot of hassle with paperwork bringing their stuff across the border. And so that has always been held us down from having a lot of people from the United States come over and participate as dealers or things like that. But we have lots of shows. The NMRA has their little bulletins and that, and there'd be a page showing all the shows coming up. And it's to the point now where you have to choose on a particular Saturday which show you want to go to, because they just overlap. So there is a lot. Of course, in Canada, most of the population is all along the southern border, from one end of the country to the other, bordering right on the States. Then we have so much vast land up north. So most of all this is down here where all the major cities are located along the border. And but there's a lot of activity, a lot of shows, big and small. And we are getting this one narrow gauge show. It's been going for quite a while, but it's really kind of like when Al Judy first started his shows. And it was like your ON30 fraternities there, the shows you have. So it was a bunch of fellows that were like friends and showing up all the time. But it is starting to get some exposure. It's in a good place right now, and it's in an interesting building. It's in a steam museum. It's a big pump house. It's a huge walking beam pump that supplied the water for Hamilton, Ontario, which is one of our cities on Lake Ontario. And it had to pump it up to the tanks up on top of the hill. So this is going back to the mid 1800s, this big steam pump, walking beam steam pump. And then there's other buildings, and they're historical buildings, and they have a lot of other machinery and whatnot, and they're of interest to people like us. And so the show is being held in that location now, and I think it's just excellent. So I know there's other Canadians on here. I'll let them speak.
Pat here.
Do you guys get, do you get a lot of international models coming from England and places like that?
No.
We
don't get here.
Here in our, yes, we call it the GTA. You have Toronto and then the Greater Toronto region, they call it. So that takes in cities like Burlington, Hamilton, Oshawa, and things like that. And in Burlington, there is a large contingent of English modelers, and they put on shows, but it's about every 2 years. But their modeling is excellent. And you get to see different products from the UK, especially before a computer. So going back, 20, 25 years ago, you'd go there and you'd see stuff that was so different, even in the materials that they used. I think they were ahead of us for scenery materials, tree making, grass, hedges, all that kind of thing, because a lot of their work is very manicured. The roadsides, the little stone bridges and all that type of thing. But there is a fraternity of English modelers. And now it's in our narrow gauge little group, which Steve, a bunch of us that used to come down. There's another fellow now, and he's collecting like models, handmade models from around the world. And a lot of them are, English quarry models, steam engines and things like that. And he's opened our eyes to a whole new genre of modeling out there, and with the computer now, and even new tracks. You had some people on from Australia and places like that. They show us what's happening down there. And so,
I think we must mention the fact that we haven't had a national in this area for quite some time now. Been a number of years.
To my recollection, I think that I've only known of 2 national NMRAs here in Toronto. One over 10 years ago, and the other was back in the 50s at the Royal York Hotel.
I think they're looking for a host site.
Indeed,
It might be, but we're not ready.
I think that's kind of the challenge. I mean, that's, and I think the thing that's interesting is that, density gives you larger train shows. So out here on the West Coast, I mean, there's really a dearth of better train shows out here comparatively. It's dramatically less. So
I think, frankly, there's more wealth in the States. And I think the West Coast, you have big shows. Then you have to almost move east to Mississippi towards New York, Pennsylvania to get other large shows, where there's a lot of wealth around. You have large collections. And the other thing is just the importers of brass.
Your picture's breaking up, Larry.
Yeah, it does. I think my wires are going in the camera. That or I'm just half wired tonight. That's all.
Have another one.
There, I don't want anybody to go into convulsions there watching that. So
Half of these guys have wires that are loose.
But
like having a
again,
screw
with
loose.
the NMRA nationals in the States, look at the trade show that's put on with all your large distributors like Walthers and importers and such, and even all your
but Larry, you bring up a very good point. So I'm going to 2 conventions this summer. I'm going to go to the NMRA convention and then to the narrow gauge convention. And I think, coming back, Steve, to your question, how do you prepare? They're very different in terms of, from the perspective of buying things, what you're preparing for. So I know the NMRA convention has a big thing called a national train show associated with it. And it's a very interesting event, but it is 70% huge vendors, big vendors. Bachman has a big booth. Atlas has a big booth. There'll be a couple of hobby shops there with big booths of hobby shop stuff, which are going to be interesting. But beyond that, there's really are not a lot of small vendors there. And what there's not there are the 40 tables of stuff. And so what's interesting is it's kind of interesting is there are three, in my mind, there are three kind of events. So the NMRA, I really don't go there to buy stuff. I go there to check out what the vendors are doing, look around, see what's hot, go see Blue Nami announcements a year before ahead of time so you kind of know about it. And you really only go there, quite frankly, because you're at the convention. Would I go to the National Train Show as a national train show and get really excited about it? Other than meeting the vendors and that, the layouts are really good in that too, but it's not something where you're going to buy anything. So you have to go just to see things and talk to people. Then you kind of go to the narrow gauge convention, which is kind of an amalgamation of all three, right? Because you've got lots of clinics and that stuff, but then the trade show has both vendors and a lot of selling of things at tables that you can just see on the internet and you can't get any other way. So, those figures you wanted for a diorama. So that's kind of a different kind of, that becomes, I guess what I call is that's almost targeted completion of models. And then you go to a swap meet or something and you don't go with nearly as much of a preordained agenda. You're just looking to buy what's very interesting and a great deal.
Exactly.
So to me, there's different kinds of events, and what you shop, how you shop is different for the event. Does that make sense?
I agree with a lot what you said. And from a Canadian perspective, now I switched from HO to ON3 about 35 years ago. And to walk into a shop, there was only one shop in this GTA area around here that had narrow gauge, and especially ON3. And they would trade, so I could trade my HO. But to buy kits and things that we'd never see in the shop, I had to go to shows in the States, especially the Mid-Atlantic narrow gauge show they used to put on. It was fantastic. And we had it was a module show, they said, but there was small vendors there, and pills, and even like a swap meet. But I would find stuff there that I couldn't find up here. So that enticed us to go across the border. Once you started doing that, it just became a habit. You said, well, how do you prepare for one of those shows? You pack your suitcase and you empty your bank account.
I think that's the biggest thing you're saying there, Larry, is that a lot of people from the States will not travel to Canada to see a national unless we have something as big as they have. And that's very difficult for us.
Yes.
It just isn't there. And it's the same for us traveling down to the West Coast where Phil is, and that there's just no way I'm going to travel that far because it would break my bank account just to get there.
Well, that's it. There's the difference in the dollar, and then to go to the West Coast, you got to fly most times, and then travel insurance,
exactly.
Which given people my age now, and with various little problems in health, it's sometimes you can't get travel insurance, and so that restricts you from going, or you'd be silly to go without it.
Yep.
So those things we don't consider, and
I can't get traveling insurance as much as I used to anymore now because of all the problems I've had.
Right. Yeah.
So it kills it.
You guys in Toronto, do you ever come down? There's a big show in Syracuse in November, first weekend in November at the State Fairgrounds.
Yes.
That's a little more, that's like
It's
a 4-hour, 5-hour drive for you guys. It's a 2-day show. There's another one a little later in Hamburg, over the Buffalo area. I don't know if you ever get down to those.
I used to attend those, and there used to be a narrow gauge group down that you'd see, but I think that group is broken up. I don't know if they're together. They had G scale too, or 120 scale. 120 wasn't that popular. Right? There was 123, 125, and 122, I guess it was. And they were fantastic modelers. When I saw their stuff, I was just drooling at what they had on the display. And
the show in Syracuse has they have a mix of people with layouts set up, people who are selling off their stock or whatever, and you do get some of the more national guys and none of the real big retailers, but some of the medium-sized ones will show up with. The Micromark is almost always there, and what they've taken to doing is they'll take orders and bring stuff to the show for you. if you want, if you don't want something, you can tell them, hey, I'll come in and I'll pick this up. I've been, that's right, in my hometown, our division has a table there. But when I go to a train show, I always go with a list. I don't always come back with the stuff that's on the list. Sometimes I come back with something that I discovered I didn't know I couldn't absolutely live without until I saw it on somebody's table. Lately, that's gotten to be Craftsman car kits. And I have enough.
I have gone to a number of O-scale meets in Cleveland, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
They used to have them there pretty regular, and I haven't been there for the last few years. Of course, it's been pretty rough.
Yeah, well, yeah, you haven't been able to travel, I know. The big I went to the last NMRA convention in Toronto, and until this one that I'm going to in Texas, that was the last one I went to. And of course, they had the trouble with the SARS and everything, and it wasn't what it was going to be. But we had a great time anyway. I got a ride on the trolley cars there, which I thought was really neat. The big show in the Northeast is in West Springfield, Massachusetts, in January, last weekend in January. They have 4 buildings at the Eastern States Exposition Hall. If you can't find what you're looking for there, it's because it isn't there. And they do get some of the bigger modelers or bigger people in. It's a 2-day event.
That's a great, I used to go to that show when I lived in Boston. That's a great show.
It's a really good show. And I tend to, now because I'm involved with the NMRA, I tend to spend time at the table talking to people, but I do try and get around. What I try not to do is buy stuff that I know I can buy in my local hobby shop, because we feel we're blessed to have him, and you don't want to put him out of business by buying something that somebody's discounted somewhere that he's got sitting on his shelves. So I usually go there first and look. If he doesn't have it, then maybe I'll see about hitting somebody at the other shows. But you never know what you'll find. Sometimes there's, you just turn up, like I said, something you didn't know you couldn't live without until you saw it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Steve, this has been a great discussion tonight. Maybe we ought to do this again next week, because I'm telling you, I think there's a lot of good information about this.
One more question. Where did the trolley guys go?
Oh, the trouble is they're all old. And
we go to East Penn and West Penn meets every other year.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the 2 biggest traction meets.
Yeah.
So, I love.
Don't want to miss it.
If I've said if I have to downsize again, that's what I'm going to do, is build a trolley layout. Build a trolley layout, because you can do it in a small space, and I like urban scenery anyway.
Yes. Yep, that's a good item to work with.
But there's not. There's not. Again, nobody's making trolley stuff is the trouble. If you've got to, there's unless you can find old brass, there's not a lot, and none of the manufacturers are putting out anything much anymore. It's so you got to either scratch build it or hoping to find some brass.
Don't
done that.
Yeah.
Go to
still doing that. I love to travel.
Go to Shapeways and see if they have printed out trolley bodies that you can put on HO mechanisms or O mechanisms.
Because there are some people out there that are doing the whole trolley bodies in 3D, and they're sale. I mean, and they're beautiful models. I mean, they just are absolutely great. All you got to do is put a mechanism under them and paint them.
That's the future of some of these specialty scales, and like ON30, Bachmann's sort of, they're lost their drive to produce new locomotives, but there's a dearth. ON30 is going to supplement, or 3D printing is going to supplement a lot of this specialty modeling.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Steve, thank you so much for a great discussion tonight.
Okay.
All right. Yes, sir. So next I want to introduce Keith Stamper. And Keith is working on his MMR. And he has done some great work on cars and so forth. And he's going to show us a combine that he built. So Steve, welcome.
Okay, hi guys, thanks. Just getting myself unmuted and whatever here.
There you
I'll
are.
share my screen with you. I'll try to share my screen with you anyway.
Okay.
Excuse me. All right, so you probably have to guide me through this because I can't. Oh, there it is. Got it. All right, so let me get rid of this guy. All right, so I'm building a combine and I will just go to full screen here. Just give me a minute. Slideshow. Play from current slide. Here we go. So, as Jim mentioned, I'm working on my MMR, and I recently did my car certificate, and so I've now got 3 certificates, and I'm working on my 4th one, which is locomotives, but that's another story. Just as an introduction to myself, I grew up around steam locomotives. I'm an African. I grew up in Central Africa. My dad worked on the railroad. So, scratch building a combine. I needed a combine for my home layout. I model in ON3, and I know Larry McDonald very well. We're close friends. So I'm also a Canuck. I live up near Niagara Falls on the other side of the border. And I have a home layout. My home layout is modeled on the Colorado and Southern Railroad with a smattering of RGS in there as well, because I happen to like galloping geese. So one of the things I needed was a combine for my layout and passenger traffic, because I operate my layout and we need to run some passenger cars. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, and you have probably seen in the latest Narrow Gauge Gazette, an article on scratch building a beautiful car, an Alamosa parlor car. The builder of that car and I collaborated. He helped me and gave me some guidance and also sent me some information. So to build my roof, what you're going to see, you could also see in the Narrow Gauge Gazette. I made a vacuum box. So started off with some simple pieces of wood, some perf board, and I fabricated a box that I could set the perf board into, and obviously put a base on that box and then connect it to my shop vac and create a vacuum. The reason why I did this is because I needed to vacuum form the roof for my car. So here you see the box minus the aluminum frame. And here's the aluminum frame I made, which grips the sheet of 40 thou styrene. I bought 40 thou sheets of styrene and I clamped them between the 2 pieces. So what I do is I take this frame that you can see, and I don't know whether you can see my pointer or not, but here, and I put these paper clamps on here, and I grip the piece of 40 thou styrene in here, and then I stick it in the oven at 375 degrees and let it sit there for 5 minutes. Once it's heated, I pull this frame out very carefully using my wife's red cooking gloves or whatever those things are, and I press it down over the box and I create the shape. Now, to make the forms for the roof, I had to create some wooden shapes, and my friend out in California gave me some guidance on this, and basically I copied what he did. So if you look in the Narrow Gauge Gazette, you'll see this exact same method. I worked from a rudimentary plan in the Narrow Gauge Gazette, and I made my shapes, and then by putting these inside the vacuum box and pressing the heated styrene down over it with the vacuum cleaner running, it drew a vacuum. So as you can see, I shaped it. Using a sanding block, I formed this car roof. So here you see the 2 pieces, the clerestory and the lower part of the roof. This is what I used, and again, my friend out in California, Dave, he showed me how to make this, and I simply went ahead and made my little shape, and it didn't take long to form those shapes for the roof. I simply drew the wood through. I went to the lumberyard to Home Depot, and I bought some clear pine and used that to form my roof. So here you see the styrene as it is in the box. Once I pulled the vacuum over it, and if you look, you can see there's a little bit of a gap here where it tore, but that didn't matter because I was going to cut this off. I cut this away with a knife. So once I had my two sections, I simply discarded the rest of the styrene. So once I had cut them out, this is what I ended up with, kind of saggy pieces. Very soft, actually, very easy to work with. And you can see the forms in the background there. I used sanding block and sanding tools, and I formed the roof shape. I mean, a lot of this was done by eye and working off the plan in the Narrow Gauge Gazette to get to the actual shape that I wanted. There's a company that made kits many years ago called Crossing Gate. They produced sections of roof that are very similar to this. And I have a feeling that this idea of making a roof in this way is nothing new. There was an article in the Narrow Gauge Gazette many years ago showing how this could be done. Somebody built up an entire train. To form the clerestory was a little bit more involved. I purchased from Grantline their clerestory roof sections, and I modified them. I cut them to shape, and I shortened each one so that I'd get the correct count or number of clerestories in the roof. So I laid them out on. First I taped down my straight edge. You can see in the drawing there, in the photograph there, that the straight edge is actually taped down to my work surface, and then I used sections of styrene, and I cut the clerestory sections into individual pieces. I trimmed them. I have a tool which is made by our friends at Ultimation. It's called a slicer. And I cut each section using the slicer to get the correct dimensions. I basically cut one and then just used the slicer tool to do a repeat of each one. And then I glued each piece to the styrene as shown. You can see the first two pieces are glued in place. And then I lifted them off and mounted them onto the car body. So in this photograph, you can see the body of the car as well, which I'll talk about next week. But you can see how I've mounted all the individual sections of the clerestory and set them into the roof, so to speak. I built a frame. You can see those large square pieces of styrene under there, which made the roof completely removable. I could lift it out of the car. So here you see the first section of the styrene in place. I cut those sections that I had made in my vacuum forming box, and I glued one to each side of the roof, butting it up against the clerestory. And then I made the upper section and I glued that on. In this particular photograph, you can see also that I've now begun to add the material for the roof that I actually glued down. It's tissue paper. I glued it down with or attached it with MEK and also with some black Flowcool paint. So that's how I made my roof. I hope I didn't go too fast. Jim told me I got 15 minutes, so 15 minutes it is. Thanks, guys. If you've got questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Hopefully you can see my ugly mug here on the screen.
Yes, we
There I
can.
am. Yay, there I am.
Well,
So,
Keith,
anybody got any questions?
I really appreciate you doing this for us. It's going to be a beautiful model when you get it finished. Does anybody have any questions for Keith?
It is finished now, Jim. I've had it scored. I got a really good score on it too for my car certificate. I was very happy.
I can understand why. It's going to be a beautiful model, but when we see it finished.
I'll show it to you finished, yes.
Anybody have any questions for Keith?
Excellent modeling.
It really is.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate you doing this, Keith. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
So that's it for tonight. That's our show. I would like to now go to the end of our show, which is our caboose. And gentlemen, that's the show for tonight. So much for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. Thank you so very much. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.